whoa, hello geese.
I can ride my bike with no handlebars.
Greetings, moto guys and moto gals, and welcome back to the 333. Beautiful fall day out here in the Garden State of New Jersey. A little bit nipple out today, a little bit. A little chill in the air, feels pretty good. It's going to be a beautiful day today. And where's all the dirt, man? What's all this asphalt? What are these curves? Yes. And whoa, hello geese. Gotta watch the animals. So yeah, out for a little vlog today. I'm actually heading up, as you can see, on the freeway. Going to meet our pal, the Misplaced Moto Vlogger, aka Frank. Really great guy, good vlogger. Go check out his channel. I'll put a link in the description. So yeah, we're doing I guess like our annual fall ride up to High Point, New Jersey, and seemed appropriate being out here on the freeway to go into my vlogging topic for today. Just my heated grips here. I've done a lot of vlog posts covering how the Tenere 700 is off-road. God knows those of you who follow me on Instagram and on YouTube have seen my my trials and tribulations on the Tenere 700, along with my fun. The bike's fantastic off-road, and I've been doing a lot of off-road riding on it, a lot of off-road adventure riding on it throughout the summer. But one topic that I think I've been woefully inadequate in covering since I've owned this bike is, you know, how's the Tenere 700 on asphalt? It's a big question that gets posted in a lot of the T7 forums and on a lot of comments on YouTube videos and things like that. Oh, nice wing, dude. Oh, and a Playboy bunny. All right, got the whole pimp motif going there. All right. So overall, you know, if I was going to rate it on a numeric scale of 1 to 10 on the asphalt, I would give the T7 high marks, at least like an 8.5. I would say at least an 8.5. I don't think many bikes are worthy of a 10. I'm sure there's some. You know, you look at like a, I don't know, Ducati or some of the Triumphs or something. There's probably bikes that are worth a true 10. I don't think anything's kind of worth a true 10. I'm always kind of nitpicky about everything to a certain degree. And I think it's fair to say that about the Tenere. Like, the Tenere has some things that I wouldn't necessarily say are bad, but I think things that you should be aware of if you intend on purchasing this bike and using it more as, like, you know, an asphalt tour or an adventure touring bike, as opposed to just, you know, a big old dirt bike as its reputation has. So number one thing, if you're coming from sort of a standard type bike, say you're coming from a naked or a sports bike or a cruiser, the absolute first thing that you're going to notice about this bike, especially with regard to the asphalt, is its height, right? So I'm out here on the freeway cruising along. I don't notice the height of the bike at all, you know, and plus I've got the bike set up the way I like it now, so I really don't notice the height of the bike that much. But if you've never ridden on an adventure bike, and I don't think this is just unique to the Tenere, I think it probably applies to most of the mid-level adventure bikes that are out there now. If you've never ridden on these type of bikes, the first thing that you're going to notice that you know, that you're going to remark over is the height. The height of the bike is pretty tall, and where it comes into play on the asphalt is not so much on this type of stuff. It feels like any other bike out here, you know what I mean? So if you're used to riding a cruiser at highway speed or a sports bike at highway speed, nothing new to see here in that regard. It feels pretty much the same, maybe with the exception of the 21-inch front wheel, which we'll get to in a minute. Where the height becomes a factor is on more of the commuter type situations that you'll be in on the asphalt. So let's say you plan on using this bike to commute back and forth to work, and you hit, you know, 20 intersections and red lights on your way to work. You know, every time you have to come to a stop, you know, you have to take into consideration that you're going to have to, you know, put a foot down and control the bike at the stoplight. And I would say at its stop height, which comes in close to 35-inch seat height, which is pretty freaking high, if you're under 5'10", it's not that the bike, you won't be able to manage the bike, you will, but it just becomes uncomfortable. And for me, it wasn't like, some people are sort of afraid of the height of the bike. It wasn't necessarily like a fear thing. Like, when I got the bike stocked from the dealership, I could ride it fine. It was totally a comfort thing, because I go about 5'8", I have about like maybe a 29, 30-inch inseam. And so for me, at the stock height, which was about 35 inches from the, you know, the height of the seat down to the ground, you know, I had to do a big hip shift to get my left leg off the bike, get my left foot down and plant it. So I had to, like, not just kind of shift a little bit, but I had to get like a whole, you know, like ass cheek off the side of the bike in order to get my foot down. And I could do it, but it just wasn't comfortable. And if you're going to be riding the bike a lot in stop and go situations, doing a lot of asphalt riding, and you know, having to come to stops all the time, and let's say you're under 5'10", you're going to get annoyed with that, to be honest with you. So you're going to probably want to, like, deal with the height in your own way, whether you adjust it. There's a lot of different options. So one aspect that I definitely wanted to cover and touch upon, which I don't see talked about in many places, I don't see it discussed much, I don't see it in the forum boards or in comments on YouTube videos, is the engine braking on the Tenere 700. It's definitely a big factor. It's definitely something that you want to be aware of on this bike, and it's definitely something that if you decide to purchase this bike, you want to pay it a healthy dose of respect, for sure, because you can easily get yourself in trouble with it. So I think, first of all, it's just sort of a mini review course. Let's talk about what engine braking is. So for anyone who's a new rider out there who isn't familiar with the concept of engine braking, or who doesn't ride with engine braking, I don't know the history of engine braking. I just sort of know my take on it. So when I was like 18 years old in high school, you know, my friends and I were all very insistent that the only way to drive a car was with a stick shift, right? I don't know what makes 18-year-olds cool now, probably the ability to twerk or dance or post funny YouTube clips. But when I was 18, if you weren't driving a stick shift car, you know, you were not cool. You know, you were a dork. So that was sort of like one of the rites of passage of being, you know, 18 years old in the 1980s was you had to know how to ride drive a stick shift car, right? So every car I had, pretty much from age of, you know, when I started driving at 17 all the way through, I would say probably up until I was at least 40, I've always had a stick shift car, a manual transmission. And part of what I got used to with driving a manual transmission was the concept of engine braking, right? I think engine braking is something that goes back to pretty much the trucking industry and how truckers drive. And if there's anybody who's a trucker out there watching my vlog, feel free to chime in with your expertise. But one of the techniques that truckers use to slow their trucks down so they don't blow out their air brakes is engine braking, right? You're coming down the hill in an 18-wheeler and you got a full load. You know, you're going to chew right through any braking system trying to slow that thing down. So you end up having to use your gears and your engine compression to slow the truck down, right? Well, the same concept goes for motorcycles. When I'm riding a motorcycle, like if this traffic comes to starts slowing down suddenly in front of me, my first instinct isn't necessarily to grab the brake. My first instinct is to downshift into 5th gear, and that slows the bike down almost instantaneously. And so that's what leads me into my point about the Tenere 700. So the Tenere has, as we know, or if you don't know, it has the CP2 engine on it, which is Yamaha's peach of an engine, the absolute biggest selling point of this bike. The CP2 engine on this bike is phenomenal. I've talked about it on several vlog posts. It's the same engine that they use in the MT-07 sports bike, and it's the same engine that they use in the R7 full-on sports bike. So the MT-07's a naked, the R7's their new sports bike. It's the same engine. It's just it's tuned differently for adventure biking. It has a different, I guess, like a different fuel model or mapping on it, so that you get a lot more low-end torque on the T7, which is particularly awesome off-road, right? Where it becomes, I wouldn't say an issue, but where it becomes something that you need to be aware of is when you're riding it out in this kind of situation, right? So you've got this bike that has a tremendous amount of engine compression and power, you know, pretty good, 74 brake horsepower on this bike. And you've got no safety controls on that power on this bike. So you don't have a slipper clutch on this. This bike is pretty bare bones. It has no electronic controls on it. It was one of the main reasons that I bought it. And that's something, again, we can get into that, but that may be a factor for you buying or not buying this bike, particularly if you're going to ride it on the asphalt. But this bike literally has no engine controls on it. So there's no anti-wheelie, there's no traction control, there's no slipper clutch on it. There's nothing to protect you from yourself on this bike. So if you shift wrong, or if you dump the clutch, or you get whiskey throttle, guess what? You're going bye-byes on this bike, right? And I know that for sure because I've already done it. I've gotten whiskey throttle off-road on this bike at least 3 times, and it's not forgiving even a little bit. You get all that power in a burst, and the bike just gets right away from you. So, when it comes to engine braking, right? In particular, the gearing on the bike as well. Where I found that you have to be particularly careful on this bike is when you downshift from 3rd to 2nd. That seems to be the biggest jump that I've noticed on this bike. And you're thinking, oh, I'm just going to make a smooth shift from 3rd to 2nd and get some more power. It can come as quite a surprise because there's a lot of compression there, and you'll feel that, especially if you got like 50/50 knobbies on the bike. You got like adventure tires on there, or you're running some kind of a hybrid tire. Yeah, it'll lock up really quick on you. So you got to be really careful about that. It's also, I would argue, a big positive feature of the bike too. It's particularly awesome when you're riding off-road, right? So if you're riding off-road on your loose, gravelly downhill and you downshift and you get that high engine compression, you know, you don't have to mess with your back brake or your front brake because it'll kind of lock the wheel up a little bit for you. You'll get that nice slide going down like a gravel decline, and it will help you control the bike around curves, you know what I mean? It really is great off-road when you have that high compression and that high engine braking off-road. It actually helps you control the bike even more. I'd like to sit in the sun here because it's a little chilly today.
Right.
So as you can see, this demonstrates the height of the bike here pretty good, right? So I'm parking, I got a little bit of a decline, so I'm backing into it. So when I do this kind of stuff, I don't even put my right foot down. So if you're one of these like kind of straddlers where to feel in control of your bike, you need to have both feet on the ground. So that might be a big wake-up call on the T7. So I do everything, you know, with just one foot on the ground. So, and you got to kind of get used to that. So pretty much just your left foot becomes like your additional side stand. Engine braking is definitely an issue on this bike. If you're not careful with it, you can get yourself into trouble engine braking too aggressively on the bike. You can definitely lock up the back wheel inadvertently on asphalt. I've done it a lot. If you do what I've done on occasion and lock up the back wheel with your engine braking, right, think about it. The sensor for the ABS kicks off and it starts activating, right? And on more than one occasion, it doesn't activate the brake, it just activates the ABS system, right? Because you're not braking, technically you're not braking, but it's getting triggered off the back wheel locking up from the engine braking. So on more than one occasion on this bike, I've locked it up with downshifting too aggressively, and I felt the ABS system start fluttering on the rear brake pedal. Like you can hear it and you can kind of feel it, like near your foot. And again, I've had people just debate the hell out of me on this, like, dude, you're hallucinating, that's bullshit, that's not how ABS works. You know, it's a long-winded explanation, but it's one thing that I would say to sort of be wary of on the T7. So if you're on asphalt and you engine brake too aggressively, you're going to trigger the ABS system, and if you've never felt it, it's going to feel like really alarming to you. Like that first time I did it, I was like, what the hell is that? Like you feel everything, you feel the ABS system, just like in your car where it starts like shimmying. You're not actually braking, you just feel the vibration, you know, because it's trying to pump the brakes for you, but you're not on the brakes, you're engine braking. What else is to consider on the bike? So I alluded to earlier, so one of the other things that I think you'll definitely have to get used to on this bike that's a little weird is the 21-inch front wheel. So the 21-inch front wheel, especially if you're coming from like a cruiser or sports bike, it feels a lot different, and it feels a lot different on asphalt roads. So people are apprehensive about riding big adventure bikes, or this bike in particular, on like these freeways. And I will say that when you get at speeds above 85 miles an hour, it doesn't feel unstable, but there's definitely a different feel on the front wheel with a 21-inch wheel as opposed to like a 17-inch sport bike wheel. Again, that's something to consider. I mean, the bike's a great performer on the asphalt. It carves really nice, it corners really nice, handles really well. But when you're out on the freeway, when you get above speeds of, I'd say, like 85 miles an hour, when you start getting like around 90, it doesn't feel squirrely, it just feels different. Like, you really feel the thinness of that 21-inch front tire when you get at higher speeds. At least I do, right? The thing that I kind of like about that is, you know, it kind of prevents you from riding like a jerk. You know, it does. It's sort of like its own, like, these bikes are sort of their own governor, because, you know, the happy speed for this bike is on the freeway. I would say its happy speed's like 70, 75 miles an hour. It's very happy at that speed. You know what I mean? And obviously, it's a happy place is going like between 30 and 50 miles an hour off-road on fire roads. It's really happy there. I like that this bike sort of governs me a little bit. You know, if I start getting a little too aggressive on the asphalt on this bike, you know, it gives me feedback like, yo, I'm not happy doing that, so stop. You know, so so I think that's a good thing, you know, because I was always sort of getting myself into trouble in the CB1000Rs, constantly going much faster than I needed to. But make no mistake, like, this bike, you know, has the beans under it to overtake shit. So, you know, no problem overtaking trucks. You can get in the left lane. If you're cruising along at 65, 70, it has plenty of throttle left under it. It's not, you know, it's not like having like a small dual sport or a small cylinder bike. It definitely has that power there in reserve, so it's kind of a good thing, you know. So that's definitely a big positive. The bike can handle both situations. We're just gonna cruise up and you know, go through some country roads, some farm roads, and you know, have a nice relaxing kind of twisty ride today. And this bike's absolutely comfortable and perfect, and I would say, like, far better than my naked bike for that. Like, I could ride this bike all day really comfortably, and it's really great. It's a little better on gas mileage. You know, on a full tank, I can easily get about 200 miles out of a full tank of gas on here, so I'm not having to stop every, you know, 130, 140 miles like I was on the CB to fill up with gas. You know, I've got some creature comforts on it. I've got a comfortable seat. You know, the bar end guards that I have in there also serve to protect my hands from wind. Has a nice windscreen on it that blocks the wind pretty good. No buffeting on the helmet. I've got the heated grips on here now, so it's a very, very comfortable bike to ride. You know, I've got small bags, my small day bags on it, so I can keep stuff in it. I would classify this as an R7 dressed up in dirt bike clothes. You know what I mean? Because it really does perform well on the asphalt. You can really have some enjoyable asphalt rides, and you can just easily jump onto a fire road and start ripping it out on dirt. So it's really versatile, and that's what I've always, you know, that's what I've liked since day one on this bike, is its versatility, its ability to handle different terrain, different roads. I don't really think about where I'm riding so much, you know, if the roads are bad, if they're sketchy, you know. Is there some things you have to be aware of if you ride it on asphalt? Yeah, like I said, we covered all those things. Height, engine braking, a 21-inch front wheel. Yeah, overall, if you're considering this, you know, if you don't ever want to ride the Tenere on dirt, I would say it's still a great bike. You know, I've seen guys and gals who have it set up as a primarily, you know, a tourer or like a commuter. So they have road bias tires on here. I've even seen guys put 17-inch front wheels on this thing and make it more of a supermoto, if that's your thing. Looks kind of cool. I think it's sort of a waste of the bike's abilities, you know, to just primarily make it a street rider. But not a bad bike to convert into a supermoto, I would think. You know, interesting bike to convert into a supermoto. And yeah, let me know what you think of the comments. Figured I'd just do a quick short vlog while I'm waiting here for my riding buddy. And yeah, we're gonna hit some twisties today, and you know, no dirt today. Hopefully no nasty pine trees that are gonna chew me up today. And yeah, so enjoy the fall weather. If it's really nice where you are, get out, ride your bike, ride safe, and I'll see you in the next vlog, whenever that may be. Peace.